Hey guys, I'm AJ.
I'm Shanique.
I'm Kazi.
So in 2018, we quit our jobs to travel the world and live a freedom lifestyle.
We wanted to share our journey with you.
So welcome to the family.
Hey family, it's Shanique again from FroFamilyTravels, and we're back with another Black Brits Abroad. And today I'm chatting with Pier. Hi Pier. How are you doing?
I'm doing wonderfully. Thank you. How are you
Fantastic.
doing?
Good. I am good. Thank you for asking. Okay, so we're gonna jump straight into it. So Pierre, tell me, where are you currently calling home?
That is a really good question. My main base has been Malaysia for the past 8 years, and I now have a Malaysian fiance. So, we will be rooting down in Malaysia, but Trinidad is my home, England is my home. So, just trying to feel out how we want to divide our time, basically. But living all those years in Malaysia, I really loved it, even before I met my fiance Aaron. And yeah, the quality of life that it offers is quite irresistible, and what you have access to. So that's like a really good base to have, or a place that we can always go back to.
Of course. Whereabouts in Malaysia are you based?
We're in Penang Island. So Penang is a state, and then there's Penang Island and Penang mainland. So I live on the island. I've always lived on the island, and then I worked on the island and on the mainland. So I would just drive over the bridge, commute. You could take a ferry as well, but at the time it wasn't very reliable. So you need a car. In Penang, you need a car.
Yeah.
So yeah, Penang.
Wow. We
Yeah.
we spent we spent 1 month. I think it was one month or two, maybe, um, living in Penang State. Um, oh, food. Hey, we loved our time there.
Oh, yeah.
Just Malaysia in general is such an underrated country. We'll get to that in a moment, I'm sure. But
Yeah.
yeah, completely pleasantly took us by surprise. So I'm
Nice. Woo, we love to hear it. We
I'm
love
I'm
to
not
hear it.
surprised you've been there so long.
Yeah, it was actually unexpected because prior to there, everywhere I had worked, it was like 1 to 2 years. And that was the
Mm,
plan for Malaysia as well. And then I was like, well, I'll just extend for 2 more years. Well, just, like it just kept going on and on. So yeah, it's interesting to see how things unfolded, because even my first ever job was in Korea, teaching English there. And that was meant to be for a year, but I really liked it. My experience was really positive. So I stayed for another year. Like I signed another contract and stayed on.
yeah.
So yeah, Malaysia really surprised me because I was like, I'm still here. And like, okay, 5 years, half a decade, that's half a decade. So yeah, it's really captured the kind of lifestyle, I suppose, like the balance of lifestyle. There's activities, there's downtime, there's the jungle, there's the beach, there's like, if you want to go have drinks. The only thing is the clubbing scene, which, to be fair, I don't really care about that much anymore. So, and I have that for Carnival in Trinidad. If I want to party, I can do that there. But yeah, it offers a lot, and it checks a lot of boxes for me in terms of culture and the arts, and going for cocktails, or going to do a yoga retreat or things like that. Just like for me at least, yeah. And then food, like you mentioned. Oh my gosh. Yeah, I've been missing Malaysian food, man. I cannot wait. Cannot wait. Yeah.
So let's go all the way back. You've said you've been teaching in Korea, other places as well. Take us right back. How did this all start? What made you decide that you wanted to live abroad?
Mm. Well, I think it was around when I was finishing uni. So I went to Brunel University, and
Hey, me too.
pardon?
Me too.
Did you? Oh my
My
God.
masters. For my masters, I did. Yeah.
Okay. Oh, that's cool. That's cool. So you know exactly what I'm talking about. Brunel was nice. It was like such a
It's
nice,
cool.
diverse
It's cool.
balance. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think when I was finishing up, I could feel that I didn't want to be in London. It was just a feeling, actually. Like I
Mm-hmm.
just was like, I don't want to be here. And it wasn't any particular one thing like, oh, the weather or oh, it's expensive. It was just like, I don't want to be here. And so I finished uni and then I worked for a couple of years, but that feeling just still lingered.
Yeah.
And I thought, okay, I'm gonna go traveling. I'll just go travel around the world. And then I start doing my research, and it was like, oh yeah, you have no money. So how do you plan to do this? I was like, yeah, okay, I have no money for that. So you know, when I was doing the research, I saw people who were teaching English and traveling as, you know, a means to move around. So I thought, okay, let me look into that. And then I did a course here in London. And then I just started looking online, looking for jobs. And you know, you have no experience, and you're just like, please, anyone, take me. And so at the time, there were just a handful of countries where I found they didn't want you to have like 2, 3 years experience. You know, they were like, yeah, come on through. So Korea was one of those where I saw a few jobs that didn't ask you to like have a bunch of experience. And so I applied there and got the first job that I interviewed for, actually. And the interview went well. I felt good about how it went, as in the interaction with the person. And one tip that I would share if someone's looking to teach English is I usually, even after like in my whole teaching career, I ask to speak to a teacher who has worked there, preferably a teacher who left, right? So because this was a brand new language center, they call it a hog one before, because it was a new hog one. They had no past teachers. So I spoke with the other guy who was going to be the other foreign teacher. So they have had, it was a very small school, 2 foreign teachers, 2 local teachers. And so had a chat with him. He was from California, and he had lived in Korea for a while already. And it was really good. Like he gave me more insight into the school, into our boss, stuff like that. And then I was like, okay, I'm going. So accepted the job. Then it was like paperwork, paperwork, paperwork. Korea is paperwork when it comes. I was like, this has to be notarized. This has to, like, it's just like I was at on campus, like, please give me these transcripts, you know. And, then you have to notarize this and go to the embassy. And so it was a long process. But on reflection, I was like, I didn't even think of it like that. And I think that's when you know you are ready to make your move. Like if you're finding ways like, oh, you know, how will I do this? And oh mate, this is long. I don't know, like this application is long. Like none of that was in my head. I'm like, okay, what's next? Okay, what's next? It was like it was time to go. So yeah, I got it all done and then like said goodbyes to people. And you know, people were getting emotional, and I was like, and I'm a very emotional person, very, and I wasn't. I was like, I don't have time to cry right now because I'm so tired and I have to focus. I really just didn't have the energy for it, and it was only when I was literally on the plane taking off and I was looking out the window, I was like, what are you doing? I was like, what are you doing? And I thought like that was immediately followed by, well, it's too late now. So, you know, like what if no one turns up for you? What if like all these things start coming to my head, right? And but one thing which was different then to now is that they paid for my flight. And I was like, well, they wouldn't pay for me to come all this way and not turn up. So I was like, okay, someone will be there, probably, most likely. Whereas these days, some places will still pay for you, but a lot reimburse instead, just because they've had to deal with runners, people, you know,
of course.
shoot off. So yeah, that was the beginning of it. And in Korea, you work a lot. You work a lot. Unless you work in a university, when you work in a hagwon, yeah, they are getting their money's worth. They're definitely getting their money's worth. So time off was very limited. And what that meant was I traveled within the country a lot, because there wasn't that much time to go here and there. And then when you did have time off, it was always peak times. So then the ticket prices are like crazy. And so yeah, it was a lot of hard work. But thankfully, my coworkers were really wonderful. My boss was really wonderful. And one thing about working in a hagwon in Korea, your boss essentially will make or break your experience there, because they literally hold the keys to everything, because your job is attached to your apartment, at least at that time. If you mess up with your job, it's not like you just leave, you need to now find a new place to live and all this kind of stuff. So yeah, I was very fortunate. My experience was positive overall. I know that wasn't the case for a lot of people, that I talked to, but thankfully, yeah, I had a good first experience, and I was like, I want more of this, I want more of this. Just things were just easy. I was able to clear off debt. My disposable income was very comfortable. So I could clear debt, save money, all of that, travel. When I was done in Korea, I was like, I'm going traveling because I had no time off, right? So I was like, I am traveling when this is done. So yeah, overall positive experience for me. And then after that was like, well, I want to keep this going.
So when you said that you didn't have much time off, what would be like a typical working week, or how much time would you get off in a year?
The working week, so it's a 40-hour working week. And then the thing about teaching is usually your time will be split between contact time, the teaching time, and then you'll have time for planning and marking, lesson planning and marking work and stuff like that. But my contact time was so high, I can't even, now when I think back, I don't even know how we did that. It just doesn't even make any sense. In the 40-hour week, honestly, I can't remember, but it was something probably around 30 plus hours of contact time, which is extremely high. Most contracts I've worked since then, the cutoff will be around 26 hours of contact time.
Yep.
And most times you're not even hitting the 26. You'll be somewhere hovering around 23, 24, like that. So Korea was definitely 30, 32, like that, and in the year, because they don't have many public holidays, and it's in your contract anyway. When you sign up, it's there. It's there for you to see that you will not have much time off. So for me, it was 10 days in the year, right? Yeah. And then of those days, you don't even choose when because they will allocate some of them. So let's say if your boss thinks okay, let's have Christmas Eve off, that will be one of your days there. Or so all little, where they might make something into a longer weekend, which obviously is nice.
Yeah.
The fact is the full 10, and I know people who had less than 10 days actually as well. Yeah, I know there were people who on 8 days, 7 days. Yeah.
Really?
Really. So
wow.
I don't even know. When I think back now, I'm like, how did I do that? But I did. It's just you work, and then you just made the most of the weekends, and you made the most of any holiday that you had. Okay, let's go to Daegu, let's go to Busan, let's go to, I don't know, Gyeonggi-do, wherever, and just, yeah. So it just you made the most of the weekends. And there at the time, everything I'll say is at the time, because that was now 12 years ago, so
wow.
Yeah. But at the time, eating out, going for drinks, all that stuff was super affordable. And like I said, disposable income was high because I didn't have to pay for my apartment.
Yeah.
Utilities were very low. I lived like a 5-minute walk from work. So, and then I got a bicycle, which was made it like a 2-minute bike ride. So yeah, it was it was great. And then the people who came to visit me, my friends and stuff, they all really, my friends, my family, they had such a good time because, just learning about somewhere that was completely new for them.
Yeah.
And it was exciting for me to have them there.
Yeah.
So yeah, but it was hard work. It was hard work. Yeah.
And so after Korea, where did you go next?
So I worked for a short time back in England because like I said, I went traveling for a bit, and then I was like in this in-between space where I was trying to hover around England. I think someone I knew was getting married, and then a friend was moving to teach in France. So I was trying to stay around, but still have
Yeah.
some money
Yeah.
coming in. So I got a job in Brighton, well, just on the outskirts of Brighton. And I worked there on I think it was a 0-hour contract. So it was like that. Those were just coming in as a thing. They weren't like how they are now. But it was fine, I just wanted something to get by. And while I was in that job, I started looking and I got this job in the Czech Republic. So I went there for less than a year because I was replacing a teacher. So the school year had already started and someone had left. So I replaced them and I stayed there until, so I got the job in November and then I left in June or July, somewhere around there. Yeah. I didn't stay there very long because, first of all, what you make once you convert it back to the pound, because it's the Czech krona, so what you make, you're comfortable there, but once you hit that euro and hit that pound, it was like, ouch, every time, like I flew back to London in the January and I was like, oh my gosh, this is not sustainable, not when London is
Yeah.
your home bases.
Yeah.
I know a lot of teachers, they establish themselves first and then they freelance. So the money you can make gets better when you start freelancing. But I was like, between that and feeling sometimes uncomfortable there, like I was reflecting on, okay, the staring, but in Korea I got loads of stares. So I was like, okay, what is it here? But their demeanor has a stronger feeling, let's say. And over time I realized that's just their resting face. That's just literally that's just the resting face. People just don't like smile and are like, like la 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 la. They just have, so imagine like a serious, almost aggressive looking face, and then they're just staring at you. It's
And then
like,
they're sharing. Yeah. Yeah.
whereas in Korea it was
Yeah.
just like curiosity, like,
Yeah.
oh, who's this? Like, I've never seen this woman, I've never seen a Black person, like whatever, but it never felt scary,
Yeah. Yeah.
But in the Czech Republic, I mean, I did learn, like I said, it's just the resting face. Because if you struck up a conversation within seconds, like the shoulders drop, the smile comes out, and you're having a nice exchange. So that helped me to learn that, okay, it's not all or exactly what I'm thinking or how I'm interpreting what I'm experiencing. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Stayed there for a short time. And then when I was finishing, when that contract was nearing the end, I started looking for the next job. And that was Malaysia.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Wow. And what was it about Malaysia that drew you there?
This question I get a lot. And I always say Malaysia just chose me, I guess. I don't know why. Like, I had never been to Malaysia before.
Yeah.
I don't even know that it was on my list. Like, everywhere's on my list, right? Somewhere. But
Yeah.
there's the ones that are like consciously on your list, and Malaysia wasn't even really one. But when I started searching, like literally immediately, I was like, oh, Malaysia, that sounds interesting. And then I just started
Mm.
looking for jobs there out of anywhere that could have been the next spot. So I started looking and I saw some jobs, a couple of them in Penang, quite a lot in KL. And so I applied, two in Penang. One never got back to me, and then the one did, and that's the job I ended up taking. And like I said, I didn't really know much about Malaysia, so when they offered me the job, I was like, okay, I need to do some research. So I went to some travel groups and asked in there, like, okay, has anyone spent time there? Not just like travel through, is anybody from
Yeah.
there spent time there? And all the responses were positive. Like everybody was just like, even people who were from Malaysia and lived in KL, they were like, if I could choose, I would I would live in Penang. They're like,
Yeah.
yeah, it's a bit hectic and whatever else. So I was like, okay, overwhelmingly positive. So I said yes
Yeah.
to the job. And then I moved. Yeah.
Wow, cool. Yeah, it's I feel like for a lot of people, of course, Malaysia has a lot of tourism, but it's not, maybe especially as Westerners, it's not a country that tends to be spoken about,
Mm,
or promoted a lot. So it's not high on our radar at
yeah.
all, because it
Yeah.
was similar for us. Like when we were, looking at potential destinations that we could travel to, on our nomadic journey, Malaysia was never on our radar, never came up.
Yeah.
It literally wasn't until we were in Thailand, and it was like, okay, where next? We hadn't planned anywhere after
Mm,
Thailand, and it was like, okay, we could only stay in Thailand for like 4 months in total. And it was like, well, where are we gonna go next? And it was Skyscanner that kind of helped us make that decision,
those
like
flights.
search everywhere. Where's the cheapest place we can fly to from Thailand? And Malaysia came up. And I kind of like then jumped onto YouTube, and it was like, oh,
Mm,
people are saying, like you said, overwhelmingly quite good things about it.
yeah.
And good connectivity, low cost of
Mm,
living, it was ticking the boxes. But yeah, we'd never heard of it. It was not on
yeah.
our radar at all. And like I said, we were pleasantly surprised. So, but I like that. I love countries that are like that. They're not overhyped. And I feel like when you go to those kind of destinations, you don't know what to expect, because no one's really talking about them on
Yeah.
social media. The pictures aren't blasted all over, so
Yeah.
you really have no idea what to expect until you actually land there. And it's such a great experience because of that, I think.
Right. So
Um,
the surprise element.
Everyone doesn't need to know. Yeah, everyone doesn't need to know about everywhere. It's fine. It's fine that it's that.
Yeah. Yeah. I used to wonder about it because I was like, in like I mentioned, the travel groups earlier. And so whenever I'd see people sharing about, oh, I'm going to do my SCA tour, I'm heading to Asia, whatever, it would be like, oh, like, let's say like 8 countries and Malaysia's not in there. Or they've like, even Singapore, like, I'm like, guys, we are like a massive country right here. And,
Comparison, yeah.
at the time, I think as I became a bit more patriotic, I was like, hey man, like, why is everyone leaving out Malaysia? Like, what's going on? Like, but then you have the other side of that coin, right? Which is like, well, actually, yeah, please just keep it moving because we don't want it to get overcrowded and crazy, which, I do think it's more on people's radar now. And
It
I
is,
do
yeah.
see it popping up on people's lists when they list where they're heading to and stuff, which is nice because I just think it offers so much.
It
Um,
does.
but yeah, so it has grown, but that was always interesting to me. Aaron says that he thinks it's just the way the tourism board doesn't promote the country
Yeah.
well as places like Thailand or Indonesia
Yeah.
and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So I suppose there's some truth in it because we're seeing the evidence in that way.
Yeah.
So I guess so. Yeah.
Let's talk about Aaron then. How did this relationship blossom and become a thing?
And what?
and become a whole thing? How do we now have a Malaysian fiance?
Right. Well, the short version is Tinder. Yeah.
Okay, okay.
Yeah. And the long version, I suppose, the longish, longer, is so we matched, but kind of by mistake because I actually wasn't on Tinder at the time. I was taking a break and I was doing some self work, and I was doing this course with a trainer, a coach, um, just to shift some things in my life and just, break down some limiting beliefs and work through some things. And so that course, it was a 12-week course. It started in September, and probably by the second or third week in, I realized, like, at that time, obviously I'm single, I'm matching with people, chatting here and there, kind of having dates. And I just realized I didn't have the time for it. I was just like, I was so emotionally exhausted from the course. And this was just the beginning of the course, but you're like really hitting heavy things. And I was like, I do not have the time. Like, I have someone telling me like, hey, let's meet up, and then then they're not, and I'm like, I don't
Yeah,
have the time to deal with
yeah.
this right now. I am having a battle with my ego. Okay. I don't have the space for this. So yeah, I paused the dating. I wasn't going on there anymore, but I met up with a friend for a drink. um One friend and his friend, so it's three of us. And this friend, I met him through Tinder. We met up. Nothing ever happened between us, but we just stayed in touch. And so I was like, hey, how's Tinder going and all that? And he asked me as well. And so I had given him my phone, and he just did some swiping, on there. And so like the next day I see all these matches, and I was like, oh shoot. So I send them messages like, hey, sorry, I'm not really dating right now. Sorry to waste your time. And then, like unmatching. And a couple of them were like, well, we could be friends. And I was like, that's not a real thing on Tinder. Let's just not do that. So I said that to him. We had a few exchanges, Aaron and I, because he did say the friend thing, and I was like, So I said, right now I'm just taking a break, but I think I'll be ready to date. This was December of 2020. And was it 2020 or 20? Anyway, I guess you know how that time period is all a blur, right?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, it must have been 2020. So I guess. So anyway, I told him that, maybe next year, like as in January, if I feel like I might be ready. So if he's still available, then we can maybe pick this back up. But then when the time came, I just couldn't bring myself to go back on Tinder. I couldn't. And the only time I thought of going on there was to just drop my number to him and get off. But I just couldn't bring, like, I really was like, just go on. I was coaching myself, just go on, send in the message and you get off. Just get off the platform. But I just couldn't do it, so I didn't. I was just like, oh, then I'm gonna see messages from other people, or you might swipe. I was just like, no. So anyway, eventually he found me on Instagram because we have mutual friends. Where it turned out in his searches of the interweb that we have mutual friends, and he shared that he had found me on Facebook, but he felt that might be a bit like creepy. So then he left it, and then he went back, and then he was like, oh, she's on Instagram. He's like, well, it's a public page, so I'll send her a message here. And he did. And then we just actually, the day after that message, Malaysia went back into lockdown. So
Wow.
a lot of our getting to know each other was through messaging. And this is now in May that he messaged me on Instagram. So we've gone from December to now May. And then
Yeah.
through June, we had a few video chats, like that, like video dates actually. Like I dressed up, he dressed up, we had our wine, everything like that. Yeah, and it was good. And then that summer I came back to England, and I was here until, so there was probably July to September. And when I got back to Malaysia, so we stayed in touch the whole time, and like I would send him videos around England, around London and stuff. And
But you hadn't physically met at this
no, we
time.
hadn't physically met
Wow.
yet. Yeah. But when I got back and finished my quarantine, then he asked me out and we went on our first in real life date. And then that's where it went. Like we just kept dating and getting, and I think because we really had a strong foundation at that point, like I think because we had spent quite a lot of time obviously chatting and video on the video calls as well. We only had the 4 video calls, and then after that it was just like sending little clips here and there, and
Yeah.
but yeah, I think that because we had a good foundation, it helped with moving forward. And we had invested so much time over those months that, it's like, okay, well, let's see how this can go now. So yeah, and that's how it went.
Wow.
Yeah.
So tell me more about what it's like dating someone abroad, because of course you're from different backgrounds, potentially
Mhm.
different cultures, different upbringings, different mannerisms. We experience culture shock sometimes just living in different countries, but I can actually
Mhm.
imagine being in a relationship with someone is a whole different level. So
Mhm.
what was that like? Were there any points where it was like, we don't really do that, when we're dating in the West? And yeah, what's that been like?
Mm, I would say it's been interesting. Not super difficult, and I would give that credit to Aaron because he is super flexible and open-minded. So when I share or raise something, he will listen firstly,
Mm,
and listen and try to understand. And in the time that we had been getting to know each other, and even now, he would never get defensive about anything. And I admired that, to be honest, because while I feel generally that I'm a very centered person, there's stuff that will, like, you need to take a breath because your defenses come up and you want to respond to defend yourself. And so I would say with him, like, the fact that he would always just be more observant and be willing to listen and learn helped a lot. And I think especially in our early dating, when, because I hadn't been dating for so long, because I paused it, and I was in a very happy place. Like I was like doing the single, very
mm,
intentionally happy. Like my life is very full and everything is good. So for someone to come into it, I was like, okay, like I'm actually genuinely happy. So what do we have here? Like what's going on? Because for me to engage in this, it
mm.
has to be better than the peace and happiness that I feel right now.
Yeah, yeah.
So we got to a lot of tricky topics that I think you probably get somewhere around month 3, month 4 of dating. Like in the first couple of weeks, I'm asking all these things, right? Just because I'm like, I don't want to go further if this is not going anywhere. So let's just do this quick and then figure out. And so it was quite nice because we did like tough conversations fairly early on. And so by like month 2, 3, we're like sailing in a way that's like, you feel suspicious about it. You're like, it's a bit too easy right now, but and I guess that's the point when things start getting a bit tricky, the 3rd, 4th, 5th month, where you're just like, oh,
Right,
okay, now you start seeing the truth and things, masks start
right.
dropping. But we had done it the other way around. So there was none of that. It was just building on what we had already established in lockdown. But in terms of cultural differences, I would say that because he has shared that he doesn't feel like he fits in anyway in
Mm,
some respects in Malaysian culture or in Chinese Malaysian culture. Um, so, but he's not a foreigner either, right?
Yeah.
So it would leave him in this place where he felt like he didn't really belong, like he doesn't belong. Like, okay, some of the mentality of his peers don't quite fit for him, but then he's not quite a foreigner. Well, he isn't a foreigner either. So, but I think because of that, we have been able to meet in the middle, or even more on my side, because if he were stereotypically Malaysian Chinese in the way that he means, then I don't
Yeah.
think our differences would allow for us to
Yeah.
have the harmony that we have together, and the bond that we've created. I think there would be too many like clashes or like differences
Mm,
in opinion and stuff like that that wouldn't allow for us to connect in the way that we have.
yeah.
So there's that. And then, like, his family, his immediate family, let's say, which is like he's close with his family, and they are quite I wouldn't say liberal, but open-minded, let's say. Like, his dad traveled a lot for work, has been around the world. His mom like travels as well. And so I think because of that, and maybe just the people that they're very like open-minded, relaxed. And I think obviously that helps a lot, because if he had
Yeah.
very conservative parents, then we would have to deal with this. Whereas I think some of his relatives might be that way, but he doesn't care, because he's like, well,
Yeah.
my immediate family matter and their opinions matter, but
Yeah.
yours do not. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Fair
Yeah.
enough. Fair
So,
enough.
but it's nice.
Good.
It's nice learning about his background and their traditions, and it's nice to share mine as well. And we were in Trinidad just recently for a few months, and it was just so amazing to have him there, and for him to see where I was born and where I grew up, my primary school, all this kind of stuff, and meet my dad and my aunts and cousins and stuff like that. It was really, really nice. And now he has like something tangible, because obviously I
Yes.
said about Trinidad before
Yeah.
that soca music and all these things, and now he's a soca boy. He is a soca boy. I'm like, whoa, because I've never seen this side of him. And he's like, show me your hand, show me your hand. I'm like, all right. For him, it's like carnival is not over. It's not. So yeah,
Oh,
it's really nice. It really warms my heart to see him like just assimilate so well and welcome all the learnings and embrace like Christmas and carnival and all the things that he saw and experienced. Yeah, I really love it. I really love it. Yeah.
oh, wonderful. I imagine that must just bring so much color to your relationship as well, because there's so much learning opportunity and, new things to do and explore together and teach each other. So yeah, I can imagine that's a lot of fun.
Definitely, definitely. And being in Malaysia as long as I have, I've obviously before him learned a lot, but now I have someone that I can turn to ask things that might be kind of awkward or tricky to ask someone. Like, okay, like, babe, tell me this about Malaysians, or why is it in your culture XYZ, and then he can like share, and if he doesn't know, he can like find out. So it's really helpful to have that, and then we can continue to learn from each other, because we're still learning and there's a lot more to go. Yeah.
So are you still teaching now in Malaysia?
Um, so I completed my contract in the job I was in last year. And I plan to continue, but I also want to explore things that are a bit closer to my heart. And
Mm,
so that would be more down the line of practices in well-being, mindfulness, balance in your life, in your heart, things like that. And I have been wanting that for a while, but I feel like as time has gone on, it's grown and grown. And
Mm.
sometimes with, you can feel the pull for something, but then you have your safe
Yep.
zone. It's like, I have
Yeah.
a job that pays me.
Yeah.
And so I have, like, I know the last few years in my last job was like, okay, I will take this job, and then while I'm doing it, I will develop this side. But what happens is I'm consumed by the job, and then I spend the rest of the time not being consumed by relaxing, going on holiday, spending time with friends. And so because I can feel it growing, and I can see that people in this world are more open, I think, than ever before to lean into more conscious living and having more balance in their life and things like that. It's like all the things are lining up. I just need to take the leap, right? I'm the one that needs to be like, okay, are you going to get out of your way? Are you ready? Well, when you're ready, you're ready. If you're not ready, you haven't done it yet, right? But so yeah, I'm trying to use this opportunity, this space between contracts to push myself in one direction or another. But I think sometimes it's the imposter syndrome,
Of
where you're like,
course.
well, what do you really know about this? And do you have the qualifications for that? And who's going to pay you to do this,
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. It will do
Well, you
that to
have
you.
people, right, right. And then you have people who have, spent less time doing it, spent less time caring about it, and they have their page up and running, they have their classes going, and all of that. In my last school, because one of the senior teachers, lead teachers, she knew that I was into what I'm into, like mindfulness practices and things like that. And we had even spent time talking about it and sharing about it together. And sorry, the dogs are just going crazy. Maybe someone's at the door. So she asked me a couple years in a row to lead a meditation with the year 11 students.
Mm.
And I really enjoyed that. It was so awesome to share that with them. And, of course, there's going to be a mix. Some students were into it. Some of them are just there like, why are we doing this? But
Yeah.
felt really amazing to be in a space where this could be their first time ever doing this, or and it could
Yeah.
spark who knows what in them. So
Yeah.
so if I could find a way that allows me to marry the wellness mindfulness side along with young people, I mean, that would be so rewarding.
Mm.
And it would help because hopefully they would be able to approach things in ways that are much better and healthier than we do, and our generations before us. If they have those tools and they have the
Yeah.
equipment, they have the mindset for how to approach things or observe what's
Yeah.
happening in themselves,
Yeah.
and handle it differently, then the unpacking and unlearning will like be minimal, hopefully. Yeah.
Of course, of course. Yeah, I'm sure, you've got something there. It's mental health is just spoken about so much, especially in young people when we think about social media and all of those things. So it's an important topic. It's definitely an important topic. And yeah, it's time to get out of your own way and make it happen. There is more than enough room for you to thrive. Yes, you deserve that. And if it's I was listening to like my meditation this morning, and it's literally, if what's on your heart is there for a reason. If it wouldn't be there if it wasn't. That's your future self telling you,
Right,
you
right.
need this. This is it's
Yeah.
for you. So
Yeah.
go for it. Go for it.
Thank
And just,
you.
I
Yeah.
think it's one of the things that I really love about teaching English is, I know it's not everybody necessarily goes into it for the passion, and they do it, so that they can create this lifestyle that we do all get to enjoy. But it's great for that, because it means that you can continue to build and create alongside, while you're still working and earning.
Yeah.
And then it just means when you're ready to, no, we don't always have to just completely quit, in order to move on to
Yeah.
something new. We can do both. We can
Yeah.
absolutely do both until the time is right to, move on to that new thing. So yeah, I hope, well, now that we know, you put it out there, it's in public domain now.
Yes,
So we're
yes.
gonna be watching and waiting to see what happens.
Yes, yeah, it will be good. I look forward to it. It makes me feel very joyful and very full to have experiences like that with people, and to co-create with people, and learn from others' experiences. So yeah, that, putting on retreats, things like that. I did a trip with my friends last year. And she was like, it's your first retreat, and she pushes me, right, in a positive way, right? She pushes me on.
Mm.
And so we went to this place outside of Penang on the mainland, and it's like you're glamping, and I took my cards, like my Abraham Hicks, who's someone that I follow, like a spiritual teacher, had these cards from them. And what else? We took the yoga mats, like all these things. I took the Palo Santo to burn and just like cleanse the energies and everything. And she was like, this is your first retreat. Do you understand? She's like, yes. And it's nice to have hype friends who will just be like, yes, you are doing this. And I believe it to be my first retreat. So I will look forward to
Yes.
my next retreat. And I think, when you think about these things, it just can feel overwhelming sometimes. But if you just bring it down and keep it in a place of like remembering why you're doing it versus like the success of it or who's going to think what. And that's when I think, for me anyway, when it spirals out, like, and then
Yeah.
it just like shuts it right down. But if I
Yeah.
just think, well, I'm doing this because it's going to make people involved feel good, and it's going to spread a good
Yeah.
message. And when it's
Yeah.
no longer about how I will look or what people might think and all that, then the bravery that comes out of me then is always very very inspirational. I'm like, oh, look at you. So
Good.
yeah, I'll have to
Yeah.
lean into that.
Absolutely. Amazing. No, we look forward to it. We look forward to it.
Thank you.
So, what do you think people should know about living in Malaysia?
Mm. When you ask that, do you mean, because it sounds like, is it like a pre-warning kind of question, or just a general like, what should you know?
I mean, I guess you could take it either way, but let's say if there's one thing that you think people should know, one thing people should be aware of before moving, and it could be either, I don't know, expect the unexpected, or
Mm.
make sure you bring this if you want to come and live in Malaysia, right? Whatever comes to
Okay.
mind.
As far as places to venture to, I would say Malaysia is one of the easier ones. So,
Mm,
because English is spoken, because there's a
yeah,
large expat retiree whatever community, because there's access to a lot of international foods, I would say that settling in period is quite forgiving. Like when I think about that
yeah,
versus moving to Korea, it was like a very, very different world.
yeah,
So
yeah,
if you are looking for somewhere to take the leap, then I would say it's a nice point to start, because you get some home comforts, but apart from it being so far away. But so there's that. Um, there will be a lot of you'll still stand out, even though the country is very diverse and it is a melting pot. You will still
It
stand
is.
out. So if you're coming here and you're like, well, there's brown people, melanated people, like you're still gonna be potentially, walking like bit of entertainment. So which is something I think I was less prepared for. I think I was very excited because Korea is obviously very homogenous, the Czech Republic. So then when I came here, I'm like, oh, and growing up in Trinidad, half the population is of Indian descent. So, Malaysian Indians, they're there. You have Malaysian Chinese, you have Malay people. And so it's just such a mix of different shades, if you will. And
Yeah.
then I get there and I'm like, oh, I still stand out a lot. So if you are thinking that you're just gonna melt in, you won't. I will say it's not
Mm,
a negative thing per se. It's just if you think that it's not something you'll have to deal with, unless you are of Indian descent or you present that way, then you like people may not really notice. But if you are of African descent,
yeah.
then you will. But actually, a lot of times people
Yeah.
think I'm
Yeah.
Malay. Yeah, they I get asked if I'm Malay quite a bit, but anyway, that's
I
beside the
could see that. I could see that.
point.
I could see that.
Yeah, yeah.
Interesting. Okay. One final question. If you could do your time living abroad all over again, is there anything that you would do differently?
Ooh, that's a really good question. Is there anything I would do differently? No, I don't believe so. I think, there's a lot of like when I was going to Korea, I wanted to go to Japan and I was disappointed. But I would never change my experience in Japan, in Korea now, like so, I'm just like, should I have persevered? Like at the time, like, oh, maybe you should have tried other ways and other, whatever. But everything led up to where it's got to. So, I would just do everything the same. Um, if you feel empowered enough to reach out to people who are already there, then do that. I wasn't someone who was able to be that way. Like they land and they're like, hey guys, just moved here. Anyone want to meet up? And I was not that kind of, but now I could be, because my
Yeah.
personality
Yeah.
has
Yeah.
changed and the way I approach
Yeah.
things is different. But I used to envy people who just hit the ground running, or even they're like, hey, I'm moving there in 3 months. Anybody want to hang out? And I'm like, wow, you're so brave. So if you are one of those people, then do that. Like make your connections beforehand. And so when you get there, you know that there's people you can hang out with, people you can connect with.
Yeah.
That can really help you.
Yeah.
And maybe make a list of things
Very
that
true.
in case you get homesick, maybe just research what comforts you could take with you, small things, or make sure you stay in touch with people that are in your life and, set up in advance your calls and stuff like that so that you have those home comforts because homesickness tends to dissolve. So
Yeah.
but sometimes when you're in it, it just feels so
Yeah.
real. So those are two
Very
things I
true.
would say. My beginning time in Korea was extremely lonely, and extremely difficult, and I had never
Mm,
been alone like that before, and I was lonely. So all my colleagues and stuff, they would be with their families or their girlfriends or wherever at the weekend. So I loved the work week because I was with people and around people, which I was used to. So yeah, it was a very difficult time, but it meant what grew from it was that now I love my own company. I absolutely loved it
mm.
when I left. By the time I left and had that boot camp training of being alone, it's just like, oh, I don't want anyone disturbing my peace now. So so it gave me that, and I'm really really grateful for that. But just be prepared that some of the difficult times might come, but if you can find your way through it, it's so rewarding. Yeah, so
Yeah.
stick at it. If you need to go home, go home if you feel like you're suffering too much, but try sticking at it first. Yeah.
Of course, of course. Awesome. Well, Pierre, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for sharing so much about you and your experiences over the last how many years. It's been a wonderful conversation. I appreciate you so much.
I
And
appreciate
we look
you too.
forward. You're welcome. We look forward to sharing in the rest of your journey coming up. Family,
Yeah.
thanks for joining us, and we'll see you again soon. Take care. Bye bye.